for a year and take it down again. Then it's good fun when it comes back again a year later and you can remember it. Another small building I'll show you now is on the mountains of Norway. It's actually on our mountain, it's on Snøhetta. It's the one we just completed now. It's for a wild reindeer center pavilion. So it's a place where you can come with your school children and show them the wild, dangerous animals of Norway in complete safety. It sits on the mountain itself, on Snøhetta. I'm going to show you it really because I think it maybe shows something of the way we work with materials. Now the material I'm going to show you is not metal, I'm afraid it's wood. But the whole building is sculptured out of wood. One solid block of wood, this is our model. You can see the reindeer is on the inside, it's supposed to be on the outside, and the children are supposed to be on the inside looking at it. And now you can see our robot in action. So this is where we use the technology. You know, architecture really is about technology in many ways. Whether it's the sort of paper you write on or the pencil you choose to draw your line with, it affects the aesthetics of your project, your building, your drawing. So now with the robot, we can work with materials in a different way. We can work with materials out of the solid. We don't just have to bend pieces of cardboard or bend pieces of paper. We can work from the solid material itself. It also means that architects now don't have to work with just models. We can work with one-to-one, we can work with prototypes, we can work with the real thing. I think that's always been the difference between artists and architects. Artists have always worked with something real, something one-to-one. Now, with this machine, we can also work one-to-one. We can make big prototypes. We can actually make the whole building with the same machine, using the same architectural model that we have designed. We just take the same thing into the workshop and it makes the whole building one-to-one. So at last, we as architects can work really hard. So this is the machine in the factory, working from our three-dimensional model directly into the machine, into the wood. And when that's finished, it gets loaded onto the truck, driven up to the top of Snøhetta, and then put together. And if you go there now, you can sit and watch the reindeer whilst you keep yourself warm in the fireplace. Around it is a big steel frame, so it's not just wood, there is some metal here too. It's not Corten steel, it's actually just quite ordinary rusty steel. It's going to stay there for a long time. I can't come to Malmö without showing you the one project we have in Malmö, so in a few years' time, or months' time, you can actually go and see a Snøhetta. Not a Snøhetta building, I'm afraid. We're working with local architects for you on that. They're doing the building, but we're doing the landscape. So in a few months' time, you can come and see a Snøhetta landscape in Malmö. It's at the Max 4 particle accelerator building. And our landscape, as you can see, is really just a big wave pattern. It's quite interesting because what we're doing there is creating a pattern in the ground that actually stabilizes the ground from the vibration from the trucks that drive along the motorway next to the building. Because the building is so careful, if you have small vibrations from traffic driving past it, then it just ruins the whole experiment. But by making this pattern in the landscape, then we can actually counterbalance some of the vibrations that you get in the ground itself. The pattern is one huge wave pattern, quite interestingly made by bulldozers driving around with GPSs mounted to the bulldozer, and the GPS is attached to our computer model so that the bulldozer knows exactly where to drive and where to push the earth, so that you automatically get this quite fantastic, I think, pattern of building up. Well, we'll leave Scandinavia and go to New York. We were lucky enough to be awarded a job for what was then called the Ground Zero cultural building on this amazing site in New York. Our building, of course, is not one of these big towers you can see around here. I'm sure they're been designed with lots of metal and lots of facade engineering. But our building is the little building in the middle here, right on the side of Ground Zero itself. It was originally supposed to be a cultural building, bringing a cultural renaissance to downtown Manhattan. Very interesting process over many years where the whole building transformed from being a cultural building to being actually just a memorial building with a museum below it. Quite an interesting process. It's a small building on what is a very big site, or a very big site mentally around the world. Everybody around the world, all of you included, have some idea about what you think could or should happen on this site and what shouldn't happen on this site. But during the process, we lost all the clients who were originally going to go into the building because their activities, whether it was theatre or art galleries or debates, were considered to be non-patriotic in the United States. They were kicked out, and it became, at the end of the day, a memorial building. Anyway, it was quite an interesting site. As you can see, we're surrounded by our peers. They're all looking down on us. We think that's fine because we have a much better site than they have. And the building is really a gateway onto this fantastic park, which is now open in Manhattan. Being the smallest building in the block, our job was really to link the horizontality of the park, the canopy of the trees, the waterfalls, to this amazing man-made mountain all around. Working in New York, well, I've only done it once, but I think it's one of the most fantastic things to do because the sunlight comes from different places. It's all about reflections, it's all about diffraction, and using the sunlight in different ways. The sun never comes from where you think the sun is, because it's always coming from some reflection somewhere else in some different direction. So we tried with the facade to take up this refracted sunlight. Very complicated site. Our building is in the middle there. We're building actually right on top of a building by Santiago Calatrava. I think he's done something here. And you'll probably know that Santiago is very, likes building quite extravagant buildings that don't have any columns. So we're trying to balance our building on top of a station that he's designing below. This was 2 years ago almost now, or a year and a half ago, when they lifted in the original steel columns from the original twin towers. These are the triads, as they're called. They're going to sit in the foyer of the building when it's finished. Cladding going up this year with the reef laying and the opening of the park. Today the building looks like this. The park is all open around it. It's this one rather wonderful forest in the middle of Manhattan. Two big waterfalls that are the original footprints of the two twin towers, and a cultural building then standing in the middle of all that, reflecting and refracting all the light from the buildings around it. It is clad in glass and stainless steel, flat panels. Not open yet, you can't go inside. It'll be open this year, I think. 11th of September. Things always happen on the 11th of September in New York. We're doing other interesting stuff on the back of this in the States. This is the extension to the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. Project's going ahead now. A pedestrianization of Times Square on Broadway. Well, now we're about 40 people in our office in New York, about 70 in Oslo. So quite soon, I think the office in New York will be equally big. We'll go back to the Middle East before we come to Saudi Arabia. Show you some of our clients. This is His Excellency Sultan, who is the mayor of Muscat in Oman. Now, if more cities around the world had architects who were mayors, we would be much busier people than we are. Fortunately, the mayor of Muscat is an architect, trained as an architect in Arizona, and now he's become mayor, voted in as mayor. Well, he wasn't voted, I think, put in as mayor. He's transforming his city into a new architectural reality. So he's given us a couple of jobs. And the one I'll show you now is quite interesting, as it's going ahead. It's for the fish market in Muscat. It's at the heart of this wonderful harbour. And a fish market, of course, is a fish market, but really is a cultural building as well, because it's really at the heart of their society. And our project has this one very large solar shading roof, all made out of aluminium. As you can see, there's a whole series of lamellas that cover the whole of the fish market and keep it cool, and during the day shading the sunlight out. The 5,000 square meter roof, very many lamellas. It's just been awarded as a contract to a Dutch company called PLÅT12. They are shipbuilders. They build ships, or they used to build ships. They still build ships. Now they build architectural projects. And they have the job of now creating this huge aluminium lamella roof. The inspiration, of course, comes from the fish or the crabs, or maybe from the Arabic jewelry. But that's the plan of the roof, all of the different lamellas. They're quite close together. It's a very complicated pattern. It's a big parametric model that they've taken over and now designing the shop drawings for. Each of those lamellas is 80 centimeters high, about this high, quite close together, shading the sun, keeping the fish cool during the daytime in Oman. A detail from on the roof. Very exciting that it's going ahead now. I'm very pleased that Centralstål have got the job. I think that if anyone is able to bend steel in a complicated way, it's shipbuilders. And they certainly have the technology. They're using technology that many people have, and they're using computer programs that many people have, but they have a certain knowledge of how to bend steel, not just in one direction, but in two directions, that I think boat builders do have. So here you see the roof floating above the fish market, and on the top, the fish restaurant. Staying in the Middle East, I'll show you very briefly our project in Ras Al Khaimah. It's in the Emirates. It's not the city behind here. That's designed by Rem Koolhaas and OMA. Our project is in the front here, and it's called the Gateway Building.